Hello YouTube, welcome back to another pen review video. Here I will be reviewing the Lamy 2000. This is one of my favorite pens in my collection and probably one of the most iconic and recognizable. I've had this pen for about 9 months now, so I've had plenty of time to create an impression and to develop a bond with this pen. I bought this pen from an online retailer for about $180, which was a great price at the time for this pen. And just a little bit of background story, at that time I was just discovering and getting into fountain pens. And so at that time I was pretty much buying pens that had more fine tipped in terms of line width. And at that time I enjoyed the pen, although it just felt like it wasn't quite living up to its potential and expectations. And I did ultimately replace the nib. I bought a replacement nib that is now medium size as compared to the fine size that this pen originally came with. So, I've had a chance to learn more about the pen, use it, modify it, and I'm excited to share my review with you today. So, where to begin about this pen? Just looking at it, I would say that this pen appears to be understated. If you would look at this pen and you'd see it sitting on a desk, you wouldn't necessarily know its value. It does not appear to be an expensive pen at first glance. The pen has, as you can see, it's somewhat of a kind of dark gray appearance. Not quite black, or you could say it's almost like a smoky black color for the pen cap and pen body. And then the clip is a brushed aluminum appearance. It does have I really like the discrete line. I just feel like it just looks very distinct in terms of the clip on the cap. Now this is an interesting material. It is actually called macrolon, but is a type of polycarbonate plastic. This pen's history: this pen was designed in 1966. That was its original release. It does have a Bauhaus style appearance. Again, it's very utilitarian in appearance. It just looks like this is a pen that seems to prefer function over form. It does not look as ornate as other pens of a similar price point. Uncapping the pen, as you can see, the other material used is brushed stainless steel as well here. Now, interestingly, if you look at the shape of the pen, it almost looks somewhat torpedo or cigar shaped in the actual overall form factor. And it just has this gradual taper from the widest point of the pen, which is in the middle of the shaft, and then it just kind of narrows down gradually towards the nib. Of course, what that means is that for some people that may be more appropriate or comfortable because they can literally pick anywhere on the pen that they want to hold it, but others who prefer a more abrupt taper to kind of keep their hand in place, they may find themselves not liking this pen. So I can see it going either ways. And then looking at the design of the nib, let's bring that a little bit closer to the camera so you guys can see. Now again, this is a 14 karat gold, but rhodium plated, so it's like a white gold. So it is a fine metal or a fine material, and that also of course can add to the fragility of the material. You have to be careful not to accidentally drop this pen nib down because it could certainly damage that gold nib. But I really enjoyed writing with this nib, especially once I got it in the medium size. Just simply put, it's been a pleasure to write with. This material, or this nib, writes pretty wide actually. Again, this is a European pen because Lamy is from a German company. And usually European nibs write wider than their Japanese counterparts. That being said, this writes extremely wide. This is probably the widest writer I have in my collection, and I do have a few other European pens that have medium nibs. Now, it has a wet ink flow. It writes really wet, which is great. That's what I enjoy, although some may not enjoy that if they tend to write on paper types that are very absorbent and take more ink out of the pen. It is a very smooth writer as well, but this nib, despite it being made of gold, does not have much flex. You could think of it as hard as a nail. And then the other thing that's worth noting about this nib is that, again, it is semi-hooded. What does that mean? It means that some of the nib is exposed, but some of the nib is covered or hooded. And so that describes the semi-hooded nib appearance. All right, on to the rest of the design. As you can see here, there are these tiny little metal clips. Those are used to cap the pen and to hold the cap in place. I actually really like the sound and the confidence at which this pen caps. In other words, once you put the cap on there, you have no question about whether or not it is capped, and that cap's not going to come off. I have never had this pen leak ink out when I pull the cap off, despite it having a very good seal. And in addition to that, this pen does a great job of, the cap prevents the nib from drying out when it is capped. For example, I inked this pen probably about 2.5 weeks ago, and I just picked it up this morning again, and it's writing just fine. Because I collect pens, and as you can see, we'll compare to these others, I don't always write with this pen every single day, even though I enjoy this pen. And so it means a lot to me that I can pick up this pen and confidently write with it after having it stored for weeks at a time. Another design element you can see here, although it's very dim or difficult to see, is the ink window. If we bring this closer, you can kind of make out a little line here. So, and this is probably better seen if we hold it up to the light, although with the viewing angle I have for this video, it's hard to do that. But basically you can somewhat estimate how much ink you still have in there. It's a useful feature, although it's a little bit harder to see on this pen than it is on a couple of my other pens with ink windows. But as we're holding it, you can kind of see that the top of the ink window is a little more transparent, and then the bottom is opaque, indicating there's some ink there, but it's not a full fill anymore. So the other thing I like about this design is how seamless it is. This is a piston filler. It means that the pen fills with ink from an ink bottle, and you have to actually turn the piston to pull ink up or to push ink out of the pen. Now, because the pen is filled, I'm not actually going to completely unscrew it, but as you can see, if you just turn it a bit, it creates a little seam there, right on that line, and then you can continue to twist it if you wanted to depress the plunger to push ink out, to rinse out the pen, and then you would turn it back to pull the plunger up and fill the pen with ink. But notice, it's such a seamless design. I really think that that is a sign of expert engineering. There's so much thought that went into the design of this pen. It really is incredible. The pen does post, and so depending on your writing preferences, if you prefer to write with your pen posted, it does post deeply and securely, and it doesn't throw off the balance too much. I will say that I prefer to write with my pens unposted, and so I'm glad that the length of this pen is comfortable for my hand. I can easily write with the pen without it slipping, without it feeling unbalanced, feeling whether it's forward heavy or back heavy. It's great, but just know that you could write with it like this just comfortably, and it would be just fine as well. It does add some extra weight to the pen, whereas in my preference, I like lighter pens. All right, let's look at a few measurements here, and let's see how we can do this in a way that is meaningful. All right, so I think there's a little bit of glare on the... Let's do our best. Okay, so when we put the pen here, capped, the pen is about approximately 138 millimeters in length. Uncapped, lining it up, the pen is about 123 millimeters unposted. If we post the pen and then we measure it again, measurement is about 151 millimeters posted. And then the width grip, And again, this is an interesting measurement because you might, when I first started using the pen, I was kind of holding the pen at these little metal clips and writing, but over time I found that to decrease writing fatigue, I actually hold it closer to the nib. And so just kind of using this as a general ballpark area for where most people might hold the pen, the writing grip is about approximately 9.5 millimeters in diameter. So these measurements, I'm sharing these with you because if you are into pens or you're contemplating buying the Lamy 2000, you want to know how it fits in your hand and whether or not it'd be comfortable for you to write with. Obviously, if you have access to a pen shop who has this pen in stock and allows a sample writing, that's probably the best way to go with buying it, especially an expensive pen like the Lamy 2000. But if not, these measurements, I hope they help you to determine if this is a pen that you would like to buy and use. Now, for comparison with other pens, here we have the Lamy Safari. I'll just shift these over here. Lamy Safari, TWSBI Eco, Pilot Custom 743, and here in comparison is the Lamy 2000. So as you can kind of see here, and let's just kind of line these up just for comparison purposes. Okay. So as you can see, lengthwise, probably the Lamy 2000 is closest to the Lamy Safari. It's not a perfect length comparison, but they're very similar. And then you can see the TWSBI Eco is a little bit longer, and then the longest pen here on the table is the Pilot Custom 743. Let's look at them unposted and uncapped for comparison as well. All right, and there we have it. So just for comparison, in case it helps, and if you have any of these other pens in your collection so you can compare to. All right, let's go ahead and put these pens to the side, and then we will demonstrate the writing sample. So for writing samples, I actually purchased this rhodium pad. That way, it's a very commonly used paper that I've noticed in the pen community, and so it may help with comparison if you already have this notebook. It is again rhodium paper, and so it is 80 GSM. That kind of lets you know about the paper density and thickness. But just know that one of the things that I've learned in my experience with pens is that the writing experience depends on the pen, the ink that is used, and the paper. All of those play a role. And of course, there are other factors like how you hold your pen, how much pressure you put down, but just know that there's a lot that goes into the writing experience. And if your pen is not writing like you want it to, just know that there are ways that you can modify that. Okay, so let us go ahead and zoom in. Let's get a good zoom. All right, so let's go ahead and begin here. This is the Lamy 2000, and this is in a medium nib that is 14 karat gold. And the ink that I'm using here is one of my favorite inks. And again, I think that a lot of people like this ink color because I see it used a lot in online videos, but Pilot Iroshizuku Konpeki. Very nice, beautiful cerulean blue color. All right, so what to do, what to write here? The classic slogan or statement that people write. Let's see. So just kind of giving you an idea about how the script looks. Now, interesting about this nib, it's a little bit different in terms of how the tipping is shaped on here. I don't know how well you can see it on the camera, but the interesting thing is that it is not a stub. but it's also not as round as the tipping on my other pens. And so it almost has just the slightest bit of difference between downstrokes and side strokes. Well, actually it looks more pronounced here. And so again, that's almost stub-like in terms of shape, where normally if it's a completely round nib, then the down arrows, or sorry, down lines versus horizontal lines should be the same. Now I will say I love the smoothness of this nib. That is one of the appealing factors I have for this pen, is just how smooth the feeling is. That's just my preference. Some people like pens that put down a lot of feedback, almost like you're writing with a pencil, but I really like nibs that are smooth. And so as you'll see, as I share more pen review videos with you guys, you'll notice that that just tends to be the general theme of my pens that I enjoy, is again smooth writers, wet writers, and wide writers in terms of my impression. So overall, what do I like and dislike about this pen? And again, this is you know, your user experience may vary from mine, but in general, let's put down the pros and the cons of this pen. So first of all, the pros. I think that this pen is of excellent quality, and quality goes all around for the build and the materials. Excellent quality. Cons, it is an expensive pen. From most retailers online, I see them trying to charge around $260 for this pen. Now again, in the greater scheme of pens, is that a gigantic expense? No, there's pens that cost hundreds more or even thousands more dollars. But in terms of a pen that you'd want to take with you or use on a daily basis, you don't want to lose a $260 pen. That's just not good. What are some other pros? Well, this one could be seen as a pro or a con, so I'm going to put it in the middle. And I'm going to say understated appearance. Now, what does that mean? Because this pen does not look like a very luxurious or expensive pen at first glance, especially when it's capped. It looks pretty plain, but that could be good or bad. If you're taking this to a workplace or to somewhere where you don't really want to attract a lot of attention to your pen, that could be a great thing. But if you're spending this much money on a pen, oftentimes you want it to look special or to stand out. But of course, that depends on your personal preferences. So I put it in the middle because some may find it as a pro, some may find it as a con. I personally think it's a great design pen, and so therefore it's completely forgivable about it being understated or looking cheaper than it really is. So pros, again, it is a very smooth nib. It is a wet writer, and that is again a pro in my opinion, even though you may prefer something else, but it is a wet writer. I like that it is iconic. I think that that will be a pro for anybody. It just is a very recognizable pen that just, if you're into pens, you know about the Lamy 2000. So it is a very iconic, and you could even say historic design, because it really has not changed much at all in appearance since 1966 when it was first released. I think that's incredible, and that speaks volumes in terms of how valued and how well designed this pen is. This pen is very, and I haven't demonstrated in this video, but this pen is very easy to maintain and service. So I could just say easy to clean. Literally just using the piston filler and uncapping and then putting the piston back in, you can easily clean out the pen, change out the ink, or just simply for maintenance to maintain the pen. And I'll just say, and this is of course my personal preference, this pen is very pleasurable to use. Just from all the pros that I mentioned before, it is a pen that I enjoy writing with. And because I enjoy writing with it, I write more, I journal more, and it's a hobby for me now. I really enjoy writing with pens because of the tactile experience, because of just the overall enjoyability and how it affects my handwriting. I really like that a lot. So that's my review video for you guys. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. If you like this video or you learned something new from it, please hit the like button. And as you can see, I'm going to be sharing pen videos with you guys, so please subscribe so you can follow my experience and learn more about pens. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thanks for tuning in. Ciao.